Hello folks, so today I'm going to be covering the sharpening of some of the most used or some of the wood turning tools which I use the most, as I know that that can come as a bit of a struggle for some of you woodworkers. I certainly wouldn't consider myself an expert in any way at sharpening, but just to help you guys out, I was asked a couple of times a while back, so I thought I would cover that today. Now just before that, however, I thought I would quickly apologise yet again for the sporadic nature of my video posting. Now as you know, school keeps me very busy, and recently DT even more so. I've been working like crazy to try and get my projects building finished, and all of last weekend in fact I was working on the doors of what is essentially a glorified rabbit hutch. Okay, so I am certainly sick to the back teeth of the project now, and I just want to get it finished. Now I'm actually doing this bit now just to avoid any further questions about when the next video is, and it's really, as you know, I'm working as hard as I can to continue to post videos, and that's exactly what I want to be doing, but I'm having to accept the fact that this is my final few months of school that I will have, in fact, before I go to university, so I've just got to make the best of it and do as well as I possibly can. Right, that's about enough of this, I think. Let's get on with the video. Now the first thing I'm going to sharpen today is this bowl gouge, and it's got a fingernail grind on it, and to do that I am actually just going to use a fingernail grinding jig, and I've made a sort of long fingernail grind attachment for that just out of wood. The one that came with it was for a shorter fingernail. Now you can of course grind a fingernail by hand, but it does take quite a bit of skill to get right, and I'm certainly not good enough to do that, so just using the jig makes it pretty repeatable and does make life quite easy. Now I haven't actually come across many sort of really well priced versions of this which you can then just attach to your grindstone or to a belt sander or something, but if yourself you have come across these at a sort of a reasonable price, put something down in the comments, and that should help some of you other guys out who are looking for a jig to do this. So the first thing that I'm going to do is I need to set the jig onto the tool at the correct distance. Now Robert Sorby suggests a distance of 2 inches, so I've just made up this little block, and it has a hole of a depth of 2 inches, and then I can just flush that up against there and tighten it down, and that's set without having to measure anything. And of course if you want to mess around with different length of grinds and the like, you can of course have different depth holes to get different sort of grinds. Now so I'm just going to fit this onto here, and I can go ahead and grind the edge onto that. So I'm going to be doing all of the sharpening today with a 240 grit belt. Now you can get even higher grade belts for this linisher, like 1000 and 3000 grits, and that I think I might try and get hold of those at some point, because it means that you can go straight from the sharpener and then straight on to turning. But for most of the time a 240 grit belt is much higher than your grindstone will be, and will give you a really nice sharp edge straight from the machine anyway. So to actually use the fingernail grinding jig now, it's simply a case of rolling the tool edge to edge, focusing most of the pressure when you're at the wings of the tool, and that way you get the wings swept back along the tool and you get the fingernail grind which you're looking for. So there's the fresh edge on the tool, and what I'm actually going to do is go over to the bench grinder now, and as you can see I'm just taking off the heel of the tool, and this is actually very beneficial for when you're turning, because that heel will actually contact the wood if you haven't ground that off. So there we go, that's all there is to getting a good fingernail grind on your bowl gouges. Now I also do the same for my spindle gouges as well. I grind a fingernail on there just because I find that a bit more versatile and easier to use when I'm turning on the lathe. So next up I'm going to sharpen a roughing gouge, and I've attached the little table to do that, and I'm also going to use this little V block to help to hold the tool while I rotate it around. So with everything set up, again it's simply a case of rolling the edge of the tool backwards and forwards against the grinding surface. And if you're using a grinding wheel instead, or a belt sander, I suggest making something like this little V block, and they really do help to keep everything straight while you're rolling the tool. So with the edge ground, you can just knock off the little burr which forms when sharpening with a bit of light grade sandpaper. So next up I'm going to sharpen a parting tool. So I'm going to set the table to about 25 degrees, although 20 is also a good setting for this. And now I'm just going to use the block again to hold that square while I do the sharpening. And that one really is as simple as that, very easy indeed. Now you could also use a water stone or something if you were so inclined, just to really hone that edge. Now as I said, you can also get much finer grit belts for this, which would also give you an even better edge than that. But that is incredibly sharp and will last for a little while over at the lathe. So to finish off today, I'm just going to sharpen a round nose scraper, and I've set the table to 80 degrees to do this, and that just gives you a slight clearance angle from the tool edge. So there we go, that's about it for that one. Again, really very simple. Now what you will actually find a lot of the time is people saying that it's not in fact the edge which does the cutting, but a little burr on the very top or front of the chisel which does the cutting. Now I was in fact actually experimenting with the idea of sort of actively burnishing the edge of the tool, and what I went and did was actually tried using a burnisher for a card scraper, and that did seem to work reasonably well. Now just as an example, if I take this piece of wood, I should be able to just peel off the wood with just very light pressure, and so I would count that as a reasonable success, and I wouldn't mind trying how this works on the lathe. But that does appear to have quite a reasonable edge on that, so there we go. Right, so there we go, boys and girls. That's the sharpening of the wood turning chisels which I use most of the time. Now there certainly are other ways of sharpening chisels. I just use a way which is going to be fast, quick and repeatable for myself. There certainly are cheaper ways of doing it. When I started out wood turning, I just used an upturned belt sander to sharpen my chisels. Now that didn't give me very consistent results at all, but it certainly did the job, I suppose. Now, as I say, having a method that is going to be quick and repeatable is really useful, because over the course of a single turning you might be coming back several times to get that new good edge on your tool. Now also, I didn't cover the sharpening of a skew chisel today. I did in fact post a video a long time ago on the main channel for that, and you can check that out with the link just here. And now that's about it for this time, folks. I'll see you next time. Goodbye.